So,
Yeah.
so after culture, right, on your list, you've got goals.
Okay.
And I'm going to make a confession. This is my greatest personal challenge is written goals that have an element of accountability built in. Sorry, man, I just tomahawked the table. I just realized. But
that just means you're enthusiastic. That's
listen,
the enthusiasm meter.
you know, Martin KHALIL knows me. You get me lathered up, I'm like a gerbil on Red Bull on some of these subjects. And so I heard you on one of your broadcasts say, this is all just theory until you get to the goals, right?
Yeah.
You got to put down specifics and right. So I'm sorry. So talk to me.
Gary Voss, Chris Voss, wrote the book, Never Split the Difference. If you haven't read it, freaking get it and read it. It's fascinating plus brilliant, right? I mean, I'm telling that to anybody who listens. He's just so good.
He is.
But he's a former hostage negotiator with the FBI, chief head negotiator. He's much more than that now, but all around the world. And one of the things he says, you can have complete agreement on what this is the outcome we all agree on. We've negotiated it fully. He says, you have not done anything until you've described how we're going to implement this. And I was actually going to bring that up. You did it for me. This vision, mission, culture, and goals are general, they're theory, but everything we do, even hopefully as a result of this podcast today, somebody will say, I've heard all these things. This gives me direction. This gives me why. Now, what can I do today, actually do that takes me one step closer? Only when you get to that point have you actually accomplished
something. Yeah.
I mean, are you actually underway? Other than that, you've just got cocktail stories, right? About lofty visions. So goals can be defined millions of different ways, but here's the way I'm going to do it right now. And this is part of the Quattro, the vision, mission, culture, goals. Kind of could be a little print. The goals are going to change more frequently because the goals I like are things that we can actually go do. And I'm going to borrow this from Donald Miller, who phrased it really well in a video I saw. He's a great marketing guy. Yeah, Business Made Simple. He really is. He's a brilliant guy. But he says it very simply. I'm going to have 3 or 4 goals, and I will do blank by blank because blank. So I will hire my new designer, which you're not going to do, by July 1st, because I have to have the capacity to meet the jobs. And on that last part, I like to have because of a good thing, and so I don't do a bad thing, right? So I get that job and don't lose my best customer. Specific. This is what I do this with all my clients. They walk out of here with at least 3 things. Some of them can be longer. I'm going to do this by September 1st but you need that because in there. I am going to do blank by blank because blank. 3 of those.
That's great. I love that. That forces you to really clarify. Right?
Yeah. And this is the part that Donald Miller adds to it so well. He's got a book called Story Brand, which is really good. A way of thinking about, and it's the way the world works. And he's just described it. But the because part, because I need my Gulfstream jet needs new ailerons, and I have to have the money for that. So I don't crash over the Gulf of Mexico with my family, go on my way to Cancun.
Yeah.
Right. Those are pretty random examples, but
so
you need the why, what good, and you also need, you need the bad, you need them both. So there's contrast there. And the effort of sitting down and filling out that simple sentence focuses your thought. You have to think about this stuff and say, okay, I will do this by this date because of this. And you do 3 of those. When you've accomplished one, you just put another one in there.
KHALIL, can I ask you, so what do you say to that business leader or small business owner who maybe he's on the cusp of, I'm trying to work on my business primarily, but I'm still working in my business and I just don't have the time to sit down and write out goals and circle back by deadlines and be accountable. what do you say to that? Because I think there's a lot of well-intentioned business leaders that just small business leaders that find themselves, and I'm a guy that can totally relate to this, right? To
Yeah.
making the time. And in your head, you go, I know all the reasons I need to do it. Any advice on how you coach them through it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have the time not to, right?
there's that.
It's something where
Well, if
most
you're
of
going to
your
play that
problems-
card, I mean, there's no there's no response to that.
Well, I mean, seriously, it's so many times we can be stuck in our rhythms and routines of just,
Yeah.
I've got to get that job done. I'm in that death spiral of, if I don't do this, then if I don't just focus on the things that are in my business, then it's going to collapse. And maybe it does need to collapse is probably what the real answer there. Because if you don't take the time to have goals that are based upon the vision and building up to that vision, then what are you actually working towards? You're just doing this. You've created a job for yourself that is going to be never ending, and you're never going to be actually fulfilled because you're working towards something that is meaningless, right? So I that's my opinion. Sometimes the collapse, if that's the result, that's probably what needs to happen. And like I've said in other episodes here, you're probably avoiding a necessary ending. So,
man, doctor, if this is your version of a pep talk, we got to work on our bedside manner. Maybe your business, but you're right. So really, if I'm understanding what you're saying, one, this may force a reality check about what you really have and and I've been there, so I know that.
Yeah.
So, but you really, so for me to make the time, for anybody to make the time about written goal setting built with built-in accountability steps, you have to acknowledge that all the other pain that you're feeling or seeing or recognizing your business, what the real pathway to addressing those is. And it could be systems and process stuff and this, but it starts with putting in writing, like Martin said, and it was, did you say it was Dennis Miller, Martin, or what?
Donald.
I'm sorry,
no,
Donald.
Donald.
I'm going to do this blank by blank so I blank. And once you start to fill in the blanks, I don't know how you can ignore it anymore.
Here's two things on what to do, why people don't do it, is they overthink all this stuff. They just make it this big. I had a contractor in here 2 months ago. One of the best things ever. We were talking about raising his prices. He goes, I'm going to do it because I can go broke on the beach. I might as well be sitting down there at zero than 2 years from now sitting down there minus 500,000. But I can go broke on the beach. I'm not going to do it for nothing anymore. I've had it. Okay. And then on these sitting down, I'll have time to sit down and write goals. I go, nonsense. One stinking little thing. Okay. I'll give an example of a pretty young company. They didn't keep books. I said, well, the first thing you need to do is, if you want to start keeping books, it's a overwhelmingly massive problem if you don't understand. And I don't know what any of that is. I don't know where to start. Well, start here. Hire a bookkeeper, a service, right? Not necessarily. Or maybe it's download QuickBooks. Do that by next week. They will have done one thing. And then the next week say, here's how you enter a deposit. I mean, a bad example because I think a lot of small business owners shouldn't keep their own books, but you just bite-sized chunks, something you can actually do. And you do one of those things or two of those things every week. And at the end of the year, you look back and you go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Remember when we used to fight with this? I don't fight with that anymore. I'm fighting with something else, but not that, right?
But serve it up in
So
snackable
size.
bites is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's good.
Everybody listening to our podcast, anybody else's, knows something that they should be doing and they're not doing. They know something.
I think for me personally,
or that they need to start
I
doing.
think for me personally, that's where I'm at right now. If I am improving on that, I can be a much greater help to my business on the goals.